The mob king who refused to change, long before the name Al Capone terrorized headlines, before the Chicago outfit ruled the underworld. There was one man who reigned supreme over the vice empire of the Windy City. They called him Big Jim. But his real name was Giovanni Colosimo, a poor immigrant who rose from the dusty hills of southern Italy to build a kingdom of corruption, diamonds, and flesh. He ruled not with bullets, but with bribes, and for a time he was untouchable, until he made one mistake. He refused to evolve. And in the world of organized crime, that's a death sentence. From Calabria to Chicago, the birth of a king. He was born Giovanni Colosimo on February 16, 1878, in a rugged mountain village called Colosimi, nestled in the poverty-stricken region of Calabria, southern Italy. The place bore his name, but gave him nothing else. Calabria was a land of hunger, dusty roads, crumbling stone homes, and endless labor in the fields. Like so many in southern Italy, Giovanni's family barely survived, scraping by on olives and grain. Life was rigid, poor, unforgiving. At the age of 17, with no money, no education, and not a word of English, Giovanni left his homeland and stepped aboard a ship to the United States of America, like millions of others chasing a dream. He landed in Chicago sometime in the 1890s. The city was exploding with industry and immigrants, Irish, Germans, Jews, and Italians, pouring in daily. But for someone like Giovanni, the American dream came with a catch. No one gave you anything, you took it. Baptized by the streets, Colosimo started out sweeping streets, a boy in rags, an outsider in a hostile city. But he was clever and ambitious. He figured out quickly that in Chicago, power didn't come from hard work. It came from connections and corruption. He ran errands for politicians, delivered messages for ward bosses, beat up union men for local enforcers. Whatever it took, he did it. By the late 1890s, Giovanni Colosimo had become Jim Colosimo, dressing sharp, talking smooth, and worming his way into the city's corrupt political machine. He wasn't just another street tough, he understood the system. And soon, he started building his own. The flesh trade and the making of a mobster, Colosimo discovered early on that violence paid, but vice paid better. He began investing in prostitution, buying up cheap brothels across Chicago's south side. But he didn't stop there. He professionalized it. His establishments weren't dingy holes. They were classy. Velvet drapes, crystal glasses, French perfume. He called it the sporting life. But behind the glitz was darkness. Women were trafficked from Europe and the American South. Many were poor, desperate, tricked, or forced into sex work. Colosimo didn't care. To him, they were commodities, and business was booming. Within a few years, he controlled over 200 brothels, buying the city, one judge at a time. With money pouring in, Colosimo started doing what every smart mobster does. He bought protection. He became deeply connected to Chicago's infamous First Ward, where corruption was not just accepted, it was organized. He paid off cops to ignore raids, slipped envelopes to judges, made campaign donations to aldermen who, in return, protected his brothels. He wasn't a thug anymore. He was a businessman, a political fixer, a kingmaker, and when anyone stepped out of line, a preacher, a reporter, a rival, they were silenced. Politely, permanently. Diamond Jim and the rise of a legend. By the early 1910s, Jim Colosimo was a household name in Chicago's underworld. They called him Diamond Jim for a reason. He wore white suits, diamond stick pins, expensive gloves. He rode in custom cars, ate in the best restaurants, hosted politicians in his mansion. He married Victoria Moresco, a madam who helped expand his empire. Together they were a power couple of sin, but power always attracts enemies. Rival gangs hated him. Reformers targeted him. And even in his own circle, jealousy festered. So, in 1909, Colosimo made a decision that would change everything. He called for backup. The arrival of Johnny Torrio from New York, he brought in a young, disciplined enforcer, Johnny Torrio. A former lieutenant of the Five Points gang, Torrio was everything Colosimo was not. Quiet, strategic, bloodless. Where Big Jim ruled with swagger and smiles, Torrio ruled with structure. And slowly, quietly, Torrio began organizing the empire. He introduced bookkeeping, hierarchies, discretion. To outsiders, Torrio was just a loyal underboss. But in truth, he was studying his boss, watching, waiting. The storm of Prohibition. In 1919, Congress passed the Volstead Act, triggering Prohibition. The manufacturing, sale, and transportation of alcohol became illegal. To most Americans, it was a moral crusade. To criminals, it was a gold rush. Torrio immediately saw the opportunity. Bootlegging could make millions. He proposed turning Colosimo's network into a liquor empire, smuggling Canadian whiskey, opening speakeasies, bribing dry agents. But Big Jim wanted no part of it. He was old school. He liked brothels, gambling, cash under the table. Booze brought too much heat. Liquor's a dirty game, he told Torrio. Let the kids kill each other over it. We've already won. But Torrio saw something else. An empire slipping behind the times. A king too stubborn to adapt. The betrayal begins. In 1920, Colosimo left his wife Victoria for a showgirl named Dale Winter, creating scandal and resentment in the underworld. Torrio took it as a sign. His boss was distracted, arrogant. Vulnerable, Colosimo still refused to touch bootlegging, but Torrio had already made quiet deals, with suppliers, with drivers, with crooked agents. All he needed was full control, and there was one obvious solution. Remove Big Jim. Murder in the Velvet Room, the night Big Jim's empire bleeds out. May 11th, 1920. The night air in Chicago was thick with smoke and secrets. Inside the opulent walls of Café Colosimo, the crown jewel of the city's vice empire, Big Jim walked alone. He moved with the confidence of a king, draped in white, silk, diamonds catching the dim glow of crystal chandeliers. But that night, the velvet curtains hid more than whispered deals. They hid a deadly betrayal. As Jim reached the cloakroom, footsteps echoed from the shadows. Without warning, a gunman stepped forward, cold, precise, and merciless. The crack of a pistol shattered the silence. One bullet. One fatal shot. And the king of Chicago's underworld fell, blood pooling beneath him like the empire he'd built. No screams, no witnesses, just the soft rustle of silk falling to the floor. Big Jim Colosimo was dead. The silent aftermath. Police found no clues. No suspects, no witnesses, but everyone in Chicago knew who did it. Torrio, and rumors whispered that the actual triggerman was a young enforcer Torrio had just recruited from Brooklyn. A rising star named Al Capone. The hit was surgical, clean, quiet, exactly how Torrio liked it. Big Jim was buried days later. Few mourned. The city didn't just lose a crime lord, it lost an era. A new order rises. With Colosimo gone, Torrio took full control. Bootlegging began immediately. Trucks, speakeasies, bribes, protection rings. And alongside him, Capone climbed the ranks, vicious, loyal, brilliant. Together they turned Chicago into a war zone of profits and bullets. A new age had dawned, the outfit era, and yet, the empire it was built on? That was Big Jim's design. He created the template, the machine, the alliances, the rot in the city's veins. Without Big Jim, there is no Torrio, no Capone, no Chicago, mumbered legacy of a fallen king. Today, Big Jim Colosimo is often a footnote in the shadow of Capone's legend, but his story is the foundation of organized crime in Chicago. He proved that vice could be institutionalized, that politics could be bought, that sin could wear a smile and a silk suit. He didn't die poor. He didn't die in exile. He died on top, simply refusing to change. And in the criminal world, that's all it takes. He came from dirt roads and hunger, and built a glittering empire of vice. He ruled with charm, diamonds, and deals. But when the rules changed, Big Jim refused to play, and in this game, the price for standing still is death.
The case may be closed, but criminology never sleeps. Like and subscribe to join Criminology and step deeper into the dark with us.